With the Hearthstone Worlds Tournament being close to over, we are sure to be seeing some new nerfs around the 20th of December, or at least hear about them. But until then, you guys need to know what the best Hearthstone decks are right now. So in this video I will give you 5 of the best decks, and we will go over into detail about them, but we will also check out all of the other working archetypes out there, so you guys know what's working and what you should be expecting. If you find the video helpful, a like and subscribe always helps, and also ring that bell notification so you can see these videos on time. Now let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is obviously gonna be Quest Demon Hunter still, because this is by far the strongest deck out there, and it's so versatile and pretty busted overall. I've already gave you a guide about this deck, so you can check that out in detail. And the only difference in this version is we have one less Spectral Sight and one more Need for Greed. If you guys like Spectral Sights like me, you might want to remove one Mark of Scorn, which has been pretty hit and miss for me overall, because somehow it always manages to draw that 1 or 2 minions left in the deck despite there being more than 10 cards, which are not minions. Either way, the deck is trying to draw a bunch of cards in the early game and hopefully land discounts on your key cards like Spell Powers, Unleash Fel, Fel Barrage, and stuff like that. And you also are trying to look for your Relic Vaults, so you can double up Relic of Dimensions, which also hits a lot of discounts for you. You can also win the game through Fat Relic Phantasms, but in some matchups you gotta be holding off your Relic of Extinction so you can deal with some large men, let's say against Miracle Rogues with stealthed minions, or just Boom Priests alike. If all else fails, you also have Jace at the end, so you can repeat all of those fell spells you've played, and preferably you want to first try and make the big spell power turns with all of the fell spells, and after that follow up with Jace on the next turn, again hopefully with a discounted spell power, so you can add that extra damage in him. You just gotta hope that your Unleash Fel actually lands first before your Fel Barrages, so you can have some clean hits on face. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like. Death Rattle Rogue is a little bit tricky because even though you have a lot of big board clears, they do seem to be summoning more stuff after that, so if you don't have more than one way to deal with the board, you usually still get hit in the face. Ram Druid surprisingly is actually having negative win rate now. I could have sworn that was positive before. And Control Priest and Aggro Druid are in the 50s. Anything else should be pretty fine for you though. Mulligan wise, going first and second, Relic Vault is always going to be a keep. Spectral Sight, especially Outcastable from the left, is always a keep as well. The Sigil is not bad either. Relic of Dimensions, and also Relic of Phantasm, so you can load up Relic of Dimensions like that. Chaos Strike is also not bad, especially on turn 2, so you thin out the deck as well as load up Jace a bit. And depending on the matchup, even Unleash Fel might make the cut. Guild Trader, you would normally not want to be keeping this unless you already have something like Outcastable Spectral Sight, and that way you guarantee that you can finish your step 1 of the quest that way on turn 3. But it can be any tradable card for that aspect, so yeah, keep that in mind. Relic of Extinction also probably depends on the matchup. And one on the coin is pretty much the same, but removal is a bit more keepable here. As you can see, it's a bit higher. Need for Greed, you still don't really want to be straight up keeping it. You definitely want to top deck it so you can play it for 3 mana. But again, it is a tradable card, so you could work with that. Even a Silver Moon Arcanist might make the cut in some situations, but it's a very tricky thing to be keeping. Like, if you're against a Druid, it's gonna work against Aggro Druid, but if it's Ram Druid, it's gonna be a dead card for you for quite a while, so there's that. For other good Demon Hunter decks, we have several variations of the Fel Demon Hunter with just 1 or 2 cards changed, but there's also the Weapon Spell Demon Hunter that is still working as well. As you can see, the versions without the quest are not as good, so if you don't have the quest, you're probably not going to be playing this optimally, but be careful because, again, a nerf definitely is possible for this deck, so yeah. On the number 2 spot, we have a different version of Death Rattle Rogue, which has really been doing well even in top 1000 Legend. In this version, your Death Rattle minions are actually Scourge Illusionist, Masked Revealer, Invincible, and you also have Neptulon at the end, so you can pull them out of your Masked Revealer. You still have the good core cards for Death Rattle Rogue, and you can do busted things like Prep, Sketchy Information, and that gives you a 1-mana Scourge Illusionist, and you can literally do this as soon as turn 1 if you have the coin. And then on turn 2 you can tempo a Masked Revealer, which could pull out a Neptulon literally as soon as turn 3 if you're lucky. The deck can also flop big time if you actually pull Neptulon in your hand before that, but more often than not it works great for you. You also have a couple of locations in this one, and you don't need to be greeting it out. Like, literally, even a 4-4 out of this is still pretty fine, because you don't really have that much gas to give it. But it's still a very nice tempo for you, because you do tend to play a good amount of cards either way. You don't even have a Shadow Shambler in this one, but you still have your Foreskin Lieutenant, so you can get even extra copies of Neptulon that way. Invincible is also pretty decent in this one, and also the locations are giving you undead minions, so that is the real value you get from the locations here, honestly. Matchup wise, we don't have that much stats, but from the ones we do, everything is just great for you. For the mulligan, when going first, the stats are a little bit shoddy because we don't have that much games with it, but still you get the picture. Sketchy information and prep, like I said, is pretty high roll. Door of Shadows also not bad. Gone fishing, I guess, so you can find good stuff and also ensure that Neptulon's not gonna get top decked for you. Location is not bad, and Blackwater Cutlass. And the situation is pretty similar when going second too. I don't think you should be keeping Mass Revealer though. You definitely want to be getting it out of your Scourge Illusionist, and you want to be getting your Scourge Illusionist out of Sketchy Information. For other good rogue decks, Thief Rogue is still doing very good, even in Top Legend. And we also have Miracle Rogues with Draco, with Concoctions, and all of that stuff. But those decks are very high skill caps, so I guess that's why the win rate for them is not as high. And also the meta is trying to target those, so it's a little bit tricky for him right now. On the number 3 spot, we have Control Undead Priest, which came in the meta by storm, and it basically is trying to punish the previous meta decks. In this version, you have a bunch of undead minions with your Foul Egg and your Plague Spreader, and you can revive those with your Bone Caller. Spirit Guide is also undead, and you have several ways to revive those undead minions, which can be pretty annoying for the opponent. Plague Spreader can also be a great way for you to be breaking the opponent's combo potentials, and it can work great against things like Ramp Druid, against Fell Demon Hunter, heck, even against Rogue, because you could transform their Draka, for instance. You have a ton of control tools as well, High Cultist also revives your undead stuff, and you have tons of healing as well. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like, and Ramp Druid is gonna be pretty hard for you, and also Blood Death Knight, but they're not exactly super popular right now, but the Quest Demon Hunter is gonna be a 50-50 for you. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like when going first and second, and you gotta be checking it on the both stats, cause going first and second is looking messy, but still you can get a good idea of what you should be holding on to. Depending on the matchup, you could decide between different board clears. Your locations are always gonna be nice. Venomous Scorpion gives you a nice early game. Tradable Amulet, nothing wrong with it too. The Egg also might make the cut, but yeah, all around try to curve out and try to keep the appropriate removals. For other good priest decks, we also have Blessed Priest still doing very strong, and the rest is variations of the Control Priest. On the number 4 spot, we still have Ramp Druid doing very good, and I did give you guys a guide about this deck recently, so you might want to check that out as well. The deck is super fun, super greedy, and super powerful. And as long as you get your ramp on time, you can be doing some pretty crazy things pretty fast. With the new armor package, you could be doing a lot of crazy things, and a new Brakan is the main culprit for that. With him, if the board allows it, you can also trigger an Underking twice, and that gives you even more armor to work with. Crypt Keeper becomes 0, and you could also get the extra armor from plating on the turn prior. The rest of the deck is good old Ramp Druid, but you also have Astalor, which works wonderfully with Bran, and you can do some OTKs as long as you have enough mana to do it after you have played your Guff. The thing about Bran and Astalor is, you could get extra copies of the next Astalor card like that, so technically if you play Bran into 2 mana Astalor, now you have 2 5 mana Astalors, which are also gonna give you 2 8-drop Astalors each. So that's a total of 4 8 mana Astalors, which deal 16 damage each. And you even have enough mana to play one of the 8 mana Astalors, as long as, like I said, you have played Guff a long time ago. We have a single copy of Spammy Arcanist in here, which can punish some opponents who are not careful about it. And you still have the nerfed Saradin Aphrius, but again with Bran in the deck you can still do a lot of damage with him. Matchup wise, there's not enough stats out there, but aggressive super fast decks are not going to be great for you. And same goes for the mulligan, you don't really have too much stats for it, but basically you want your early game ramp with Wild Growth and Wild Bloom Seedsman being your best keeps. Guff as well is amazing. If you're already curving out, you could even consider keeping Scale of Onyxia, and even a new Brakan could be a keep, again, if you're curving out. Jerry Rig is also insanely good for you, and the only choose one card we're running is Nourish. So getting both versions of it in your hand definitely helps a lot, but Nourish alone, you don't really want to be keeping it too much. Depending on the matchup, you could consider keeping things like Planted Evidence for early game, potential removal, Moonlit Guidance could help you find your ramp on time, and the same can be said for Aquatic Form too. Innervate can also be pretty nice, especially if you have something to be ramping into. For other good Druid decks, Aggro Druid is still doing very good, and there are different variations of Ramp Druid going around as well. And on the last spot we have Ping Mage, but honestly this could have been plenty of other decks, but Ping Mage actually does have pretty good stats right now, as well as plenty of games played. This deck basically looks like the good old Spooky Mage, but you also have room for some Objection Secrets, which can be pretty powerful in the current meta, and you also have room for an Astalor as well. Arcanologist can pull your objections faster, and with Commander Sivara you can get extra copies of all the important spells like Wildfire, Solid Alibi, Objection, and so on and so forth. You also have a couple of Grey Sage Parrots which can repeat things like Runa the Archmage, Mass Polymorph, Blizzard, and you also have Varden for Mass Freezing too. With Reckless Apprentice you can still amp up your hero power a lot, with your Magister Downgrasp already played, and you also have a Viper for all of those Drakas out there. Being able to time Solid Alibi correctly can definitely be the difference between winning and losing against some of the most popular matchups out there, so you definitely gotta get good at knowing when to pop the shield. Matchup wise you're gonna be good against Rogues, but not so good against Quest Demon Hunter and Ramp Druid. For the mulligan you want your Magister Downgrasp, Arcanologist is not bad, Wildfire MVP as well, Location's very good, Arcane Intellect for extra card draw, Shivering Sorceress also makes the cut, and Amplified Snowflurry can be pretty good as well. Deepwater Evoker, definitely a good consideration, and Reckless Apprentice also might be a keep, especially if you already have Wildfire on. For other good mage decks, we still have 30 Spooky Mage doing well. There's also a 30 variant of the Ping Mage too. Secret Mage is acceptable from Diamond to Legend, Big Spell Mage still works, and the rest is variations of those. For the classes we didn't mention, starting off with Death Knight, we have Frost Death Knight doing pretty decently, and also Blood Death Knight can make the cut too. For Hunter, Beast Hunter is actually still doing very strong, and there are also variants of Arcane Hunter with 40 cards. Shock Spitter is still usable, but it's a bit slower now, and it's running the 40 variant, and also the faster 30 variant apparently is still usable even after the big nerf, but that's about it for Hunter. For Paladin, Dragon Paladin is actually doing very well, but there's not that big a sample size. Pure Paladin is also pretty good, and here we do have a huge sample size, but if you're seeing too much Fel DH, you're not gonna have too good of a time. There's also Silverhand Recruit Paladin, which relies more on your hero powers and whatnot. And there's also slower Control Paladins, which are still doing very good. With Shamans, Evolve Shaman is doing very well, Murloc Shaman is also pretty usable, and we still have 40 Control Shamans doing pretty good too. For Warlocks, still Imp Warlock and Curse Warlock is the way to go, but Phylactery Warlock seems to be a lot lower now. And for Warrior, Enraged Warrior is the only usable version right now, and we should be seeing some changes to this class, cause right now it's really in the dumpster it seems. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this top 5 guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing before the next nerfs hit. Try not to be crafting too much and save your dust if you don't have too much of it. And also don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video or stream.